To see the fully uncut version of this video, head over to patreon.com/Jonjo Lyons.
What's that like to live deliciously? Chaos reigns.
Please don't scream.
Nah, Sid, don't you blame the movies. Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative.
What's going on? My name is Jonjo Lyons, and today I'm here to present to you my review for Black Metal Veins. Written and directed by Lucifer Valentine, Black Metal Veins stars this one and a bunch of others. Black Metal Veins unflinchingly documents the dark realities of despair and morbid self-annihilation surrounding the lives of 5 heroin junkies. The addicts' intertwining stories of pain, loss, sadness and abandonment lead the viewer down the agonizing and hideous path of horrifying psychological and spiritual destruction as the grim disease of heroin addiction infects and decays the bodies and minds of 5 young people. God. That sounds like fun. This film is Lucifer Valentine's attempt at a documentary, and that fact alone had me excited. If only for the promise of a much more stripped down and decidedly less Lucifer Valentine experience, much like A Perfect Child of Satan. The subject matter is about as dark as they come, with us basically just watching 5 people slowly disintegrate. It's savage. The only drawback here is, according to some, this isn't really even a documentary at all. Reports of many, if not all, the major things that take place in this film just being set up by Lucifer is disappointing, but not at all surprising. Oh, well, by the way, I didn't pick this film. You voted for it. Remember that just before you type your comments. Yeah? This is Black Metal Veins. The film begins with a disclaimer that reads, "The following film is meant to document and depict the perils of drug use, specifically the use of heroin and crack cocaine, in order to clearly illustrate the physical, psychological, emotional and spiritual destruction caused by drug addiction. In no way is the following film meant to encourage the illegal use of drugs of any kind. Conversely, this film is meant to act as a strong deterrent to drug use and addiction by portraying the realities of utter morbid despair and self-annihilation of several drug addicts. The film delves into the infinite black void of sadness, pain and loss that can never be filled by the elusive high of crack or heroin." That goes for the review as well, by the way, YouTube. You'll understand when you start to see the movie, but this review is in no way trying to give drugs a positive shout out or whatever, okay? So it's not against the guidelines, okay? There's going to be a lot of Nick in this one, I reckon. Unless you're on Patreon. Cut to Brad, a heroin addict guitarist in a black metal band. Cut to a dark corridor as Brad's band walk through the darkness, accompanied by the sound of screaming and a woman singing a hymn. Cut to Brad crushing up pills and then to the band preparing to practice. Cut back to Brad as in the practice room he picks up a guitar. He then explains to us that black metal isn't about playing live or being part of some social scene. He tells us it is simply about Satan.
True call black metal is not about playing live, not about being part of some bullshit social scene, you know. It's just about, you know, Satan.
We cut back and forth from Brad ingesting his drug of choice to the band in the studio, then finally to Brad looking all kinds of f***ed up. Cut to him talking more about black metal.
Crushing it, you know, putting our throne high above the skull of God, you know. It's just black metal, man.
Cut to the opening credits, which run as we watch Brad playing guitar in the studio. Cut to Brad's living room where we meet his friends Chris and Raven. Chris takes a call and heads out with Brad as we cut to Raven introducing us to her pet rat Templeton. She talks about her pets, then tells us that she's been living here with her boyfriend for 9 months, the same amount of time that they've been together. When asked if Chris is her boyfriend, she says no. He's more like a brother and supposedly keeping her out of trouble while her boyfriend's away. She says since her boyfriend went out to sea with the Navy, she's developed a pretty serious habit, having at one point spent $1,200 of his money on drugs over a 5-day period. She then tells a story of nearly dying from a recent overdose of heroin. The nonchalant way that she tells the story is heartbreaking when considering her perception of accidental death, that it's just a natural, normal part of life, an occupational hazard.
It was a little bit much for one, and I was like, oh, f it, I'm gonna do it anyway, and I almost died. It was really strong shit. It was that was good shit. Wasn't that good shit?
I also find this edit here really interesting.
Well, because he left. I mean, they're back. They're back.
This statement is short and seemingly unconnected to the story she was just telling. You're gonna see this a lot throughout the movie. It just makes me wonder who he is, why he left, and what happened because he left. It's then Brad returns with the goods, and as the crew set up, he admits that he's been doing this for 4 years. Cue the music. This guy Doom injects Brad and he says that he wishes we could feel what he is feeling right now. Doom then gets involved as Chris goes on a disjointed rant about sex and his ex.
I wish I was still with Wendy, man. You'd have videotaped us. I could have told her we wanted to right now, been over this table. She'd have been all about it.
Chris then goes out for beer while Brad plays guitar and Raven takes her turn, then tries to make a call. The group's conversation becomes a mess as we cut back and forth between random drug-fueled rants.
Out of her the one night, but her little girl was awake
Unbaptized fat to make candles out of.
and fully aware that her mother's a crackhead.
I'll smoke some more.
The editing gives us small snippets of longer stories or more in-depth character development. Those clips are purposefully selected to make a statement in both what information is included and what is left to interpretation. Also, I feel like this frantic presentation mixed with the droning score perfectly represents the feeling of taking part in such an evening. And also the fragmented memories the morning after. When you've gotten this f***ed up, if you think back to it, you only see the flashes of the moments that struck you. The, for whatever reason, important moments your brain decided to make an extra effort to record. What I'm saying is, this film feels like a come down. And for anyone that's ever been on a proper come down, you know what I mean. Like, bad news. Bad news. They talk about a bunch of shit, but here are the important bits. Brad and Raven's friendship and their codependency, Raven's boyfriend, Brad getting oxy from his sick mother, and Chris having no family as his mother hates him and his dad killed himself. Brad then takes another hit and nods out while Chris talks himself up.
I'm the dope, man. I can get anything I want. If it's around here, I can get it. I've been around for a long time and I'm well trusted.
Chris then partakes and we leave him to find Raven and Brad in another room. It looks like Brad is on the brink of overdosing and so the group try to keep him awake. Cut to Brad on the guitar and then to him snorting his drug of choice, Oxy. He says he nodded out and when he came to, all of his money and drugs had been stolen. He says it could have been Raven or the people upstairs. He doesn't call them that. And then tells the story of how he met Angie. She was apparently going to buy beer for Brad as he was under 21, but they ended up just doing heroin instead and it was all downhill from there. A tale as old as your mum. We then meet this self-proclaimed alcoholic as he describes his abusive father and says fuck a lot.
That's this motherfucker. Whack his fucking fist. My fucking ass all the fucking time. Whack! My dad's a Vietnam vet. He whooped my ass.
Brad goes on to explain a previous suicide attempt and his love-hate relationship with drugs, worrying that he may never stop. He then tells us about Angie's eventual death after having had her daughter taken away and how he beat the shit out of the kid's real dad.
Her father made a dumbass mistake to make a comment about Angie, and I beat the out of him in front of his daughter, which I still feel bad for.
In a church parking lot?
Yeah.
It's also worth noting that at times a child can be heard in the background. Cut to Raven saying she's going to kill someone, talking to her mother and then to her boyfriend. She says that she's the man in this relationship and she's in control when we cut to Brad on the guitar.
I'm in control. Hey, baby.
Cut to Doom as he tells a story about having his throat cut the other night by someone he was hanging out with.
The other day was kind of funny because some guy cut my throat, so...
There's a quick cut of Raven on the phone here and I really like the placement.
Oh my god, does it really matter?
I don't know, I just met him that night actually. He's an alright guy though.
Doom talks more about how he spends his time, his want to bring humanity closer to annihilation, and Black Metal saying he gave away his collection as he wanted to be rid of material possessions. He says he knows where he stands. Nowhere.
Nowhere. Nowhere.
Doom, true to his name, is a pure nihilist, walking into the fire with a surprisingly chill demeanor and smile. He tells us he has no reason to be sad, but is and always has been, leading to his love of black metal.
That's why I got into black metal. Yeah, I mean, it found me. I didn't go out looking for it, it just appeared.
Cut to Raven as she tells us about the wonderful childhood she had. A wonderful childhood that still led her to becoming a drug addict. She says it's nobody's fault but her own, a point that Doom agrees with.
It's nobody's fault but my own. I did it myself. You know what I'm saying?
You agree with that?
Yeah.
Doom then tells us about his dad's suicide when the man shot himself not 10 feet away from his son. He was dying of cancer, so by the end, the only thing that had any weight in his body was the tumour in his stomach. He then says if you're in that much pain, you have a right to take your own life.
It's a good idea. Why live if you're not really living?
Cut to Raven talking about her past in which she was molested and had an abusive relationship with her stepfather. This is all contrary to Raven's earlier comments about her perfect childhood, which is interesting. She calls herself a f***up, says she got pregnant at 15 and 17 and lost her virginity at 12. She says she doesn't see her kids much as she's always high and doesn't like to see them when she's high. It's then we find out her mother has custody of the kids. Apparently the mother hopes that she can succeed with the kids where she failed with Raven, but again, Raven says that if they're gonna be f***ed up, they're gonna be f***ed up.
Some people are f***ed up because of things that happen to them, but for the most part, it's all in their own accord. It really is.
She gets back on the phone when Chris turns up. He says he just got followed by a cop and then gets on with smoking crack. Cut to Chris on another rant, talking about how he lost his wife and kids after a fight and how she sold all of his stuff, leaving him with nothing and no one.
So I've lost everything in the last couple months, and I have nobody. I mean, I have nobody.
Cut to Brad looking like this and then to everyone shooting up. We also get a quick mention of Chris and Raven banging in the past, but they move right past it and continue to get mash up. Raven gets naked saying she smokes crack just about every day.
How often do you smoke crack?
Just about every day. It's fun to do. The act of smoking crack is fun.
As you will see later.
I enjoy it.
Cut to Raven talking about being locked up before taking another call. Cut to more fractured conversation about different drugs. Brad nearly drowning in a cereal bowl. Whether or not they'll be getting more drugs. Chris nearly killing a guy. Antidepressants. Being dope sick. Hallucinating. Being stalked. Over, raped, and everything else in between. And I'll say again, the way that these drugged up conversations are cut together is so effective in how it replicates that situation in reality. It's disorientating and actually kind of scary. Cut to Chris talking about his kids who he's unsurprisingly not allowed to see.
No, my mother went into court and lied and took my son from me. No, I didn't want her having anything to do with my son because I didn't want her f***ing him up like she did me. Yeah.
He shows the filmmaker a photo and we see this message. About 1 month into filming this movie, Chris was murdered in a drug deal gone bad. He was shot 8 times. 4 in the heart, 4 in the head. Next, we're introduced to Raven's boyfriend, Mark.
Raven's boyfriend, Mark Dykman.
He says they've been together for about 1 year and 8 months and he doesn't do any drugs. He says he hates what the drugs do to Raven, both mentally and physically, how she'd been clean when they first met and how that didn't last too long. He then talks about all the things he's pawned and money he's spent trying to keep Raven well.
They pawned so much stuff off. I have my DVD player and my TV, we pawned that off.
And you did all this for Raven?
Yes. You wouldn't believe the stuff I've done for her.
I would.
Cut to this woman writhing around on the floor for a bit and then back to Brad as he talks about black metal. How it's more than a genre, more than a way of life.
Black metal foremost, should be about Satan. It is, its roots are founded on Satanism.
Cut to Mark saying that Satan has a hold of Brad and Raven through drugs before we're introduced to this fella who tells us that life is a dream before smoking crack.
Just a nightmare dream, dude. We all wake up one day. We'll wake up.
Life's a dream, and then you bung crack. Cut to Brad showing us his teeth and then his gnarly as f*** toenails.
Get that one. I could slit a newborn's throat with that one.
Good lord. Cut to 6 months later where Raven shows us a f***ing golf ball sized abscess that's formed under her arm. She once again tells us just how much she loves the crack, then goes on to explain the special relationship she often develops with her crack dealers. She then talks about her mother, an ex-go-go dancer that she doesn't get along with. We see this fella, then Raven launches into a story before we quickly cut away and Brad enters with this woman, Autumn Misery, who Brad calls a gutter c*** and a prostitute.
She's a fucking gutter c***. She's a prostitute. She fucks men.
3 cheers for that.
She fucks men for fucking money. Like, good amount too. She charges $200.
Which is pretty savage. She shows us her tattoos and then talks about humiliating men for work.
Yeah, I do f***ed up shit. Trying to like 500 to f*** him in his ass. Call myself dominatrix. But, it's self-proclaimed. Because, I got my ass kicked up back in the day and I could handle pain more than any motherfucker, I think.
Brad then talks about driving Autumn around for her work and spending the money that she earned on crack. Cut to Raven telling us that she has multiple parasites and how she thinks she got them from using needles.
Basically, I'm pretty positive that I got them from using needles. What the f***? You got a needle. It's got germs on it. I'm not a doctor.
Cut to Autumn smoking crack and vomiting. And then to Brad telling a story about digging up a dead body because they needed a left hand. Autumn then talks about an older man that she's acquainted with who buys women's company with drugs. She says she's been teaching him the ways of the drug world and what crack hoes are after, and in return he looks out for her. And gives her drugs, I imagine. She explains how she collects money for her sex work and applies that to how her older friend conducts business with his women. She basically becomes his facilitator. Facilitating that in your mouth. She then talks about how this guy is high ranking and has done a lot of shit in his life and doesn't want to tell us anymore. She says the girls are fluff, the world is fluff, and that's why she wishes she was dead.
It's like fluff, man. Everyone's about fluff. The world's about fluff, dude. It's bullshit. It's like, I hate living.
She says her plan is to get rich, buy a mansion on a hill, and tell everyone to fuck off. Which, I must say, is pretty relatable.
I'm gonna fucking have enough to kill myself. Like the guy from Nirvana. He had the funds.
Cut to some time later as Brad and Raven talk the positives of crack and Autumn talks anarchy and leading a life that is in direct opposition to the norm. Like this is a deliberate choice. Cut to Raven advising she knows how she's going to die. That she's going to take her own life.
I'm gonna take my own life. Save myself the fucking trouble of having to be old and decrepit. I won't have the strength to hang myself.
Cut to young Raven blowing out birthday candles as the band play and adult Raven shoots up. The filmmaker then holds pictures of younger Raven up next to her current state. Raven pulls the needle out and tells us that while the drugs don't make the problems go away, it makes her not care anymore. It's self-medication. Then it's back to more of the same with the crew getting f***ed up and talking shit.
She has a crazy girlfriend. Is it like, obsessed with me? Look, you need a pole.
I would not dance. I wrote it off, dude.
Raven then gives Brad another shot and says he's the only person that wouldn't get thrown in a dumpster if he died in her apartment.
Unfortunately, Brad's the only person who's allowed to die in my apartment and not get thrown in a dumpster.
Cut to Brad's mum, Paula. She talks about her son, saying she loves him and that her hope is one day, and the scene cuts.
I just hope that one day...
I love that edit. It's a statement on the lack of hope in this situation or the lack of importance attributed to the wish itself. You can wish whatever the f*** you want. It's never going to make a difference. At least that's what that cut is saying. Cut back to the sesh as Brad and Autumn chat shit with each other before he starts touching her bits right there in the living room. Brad then chokes her while Raven shoots up. More crack is smoked and vomit sprayed.
See you hold it till you're about to die. It's the best way to smoke crack.
Cut to Brad getting shot up with whiskey, which I thought would just kill you, but apparently not. Brad and Autumn then have a little cuddle before we cut to some time later where Brad smokes more crack. He then tells us a story about someone called Cat Paul, I think, who brought him up in the drug game and taught him all things heroin. Cut to Brad's dad, Hobart, which is apparently a name. He was in the Navy when Brad was young and therefore not around very much. He says he's done everything he could to help Brad and no matter what happens, he's still his son. That being said, until he's clean, they can't have anything to do with each other.
Until then, until I know he's clean, I can't deal with him. Yeah.
Cut to Brad talking about Angie. He says they plan to get clean, get married and raise Angie's daughter together, but while in rehab her lawyer called saying that she'd lost custody. Then on the night that she got out, she OD'd. Brad then went with her mum to identify the body and that's when he found out that she was pregnant, which of course devastated him.
The paramedics explained to me that she was 3 to 4 months pregnant at the time of her death and you know, the baby died, you know.
Cut to Autumn as she tells us that she's actually pregnant, she has no family, and is trying to get an abortion. We then, right on cue, cut to Brad injecting Autumn directly right the f*** into her stomach. Like, right there in the old baby maker. She then nods out while Brad undresses her. Cut to Raven shooting up and having sex with Mark. She then shoots up again and shows off her gnarly track marks. Raven then shows us pictures of her children, the first of which she had when she was 16 before giving custody to her mum. She says she didn't always do drugs all the time. Instead, she was a full-time mum, but when they were taken away, she had no choice but to get serious about drug taking. We then see her take more heroin, 3 caps rather than the 2 that she's used to, and this completely fucks her up. Cut to Mark dumping a passed out Raven in their bed and undressing her. The next we see, she's naked and the bed is soaked in blood around her face. We see some more footage of young Raven and then the film cuts to black. This is the one that everyone's pretty convinced is actually real. Apparently it's confirmed on the commentary for the film that that is not the case. That Raven's alive. And she's also in the credits for his next film, the Angela chapters. So, this is where the question of what is real and what is not rears its ugly head. How much of the film has been real? If we can confirm that Raven is still alive, like, what's the level of involvement that Lucifer has had over the course of the film? It's an interesting question, and we are going to talk about that in a sec. Cut to Brad's mum as she tells stories of being sexually assaulted by her father, almost dying, and giving birth to Brad after being in labour for 5 days and how that nearly killed them both as well. She blames herself for Brad's addiction as it was her that brought the medicine into the house. She was prescribed OxyContin for Legionnaire's disease. She also tells a story about stabbing herself in the head while sleepwalking that was caused by fentanyl. She says she tried to help Brad to wean him off the drugs and it only made him worse. She then starts crying, admitting her love for her son.
I wish I could take his habit and put it in my body. That way he wouldn't have it no more.
Cut to Doom and Brad getting f***ed up. The filmmaker asks what happened to Chris and Doom tells him he's dead. He then asks about Raven and Doom says that she is also dead.
What about Raven? So what's up with Raven?
She's dead too. She looked pretty dead.
She's not. Well, I mean, she might be now, I don't know. She wasn't then, that's what I'm saying. Both men say they don't care and then talk about how they don't have any friends, how this makes things simpler and saves a lot of people a lot of hassle. Brad then gets another big shot to the neck and we cut between him and his mother as she describes dealing with his addiction and her guilt. Brad then falls off the sofa and we cut to this text. 2 years and several overdoses later, Brad was committed to a psychiatric ward by his father who found him trying to commit suicide by hanging. We then have a title card and the credits roll over images of Raven. The end. Well, that was fucking depressing. Black Metal Veins is a film that is hard to judge for what it is because it is in reality not what it pretends to be. Does that make sense? The film is presented as a documentary and for the most part that seems to be true. The repeated shots of the crew getting stuck with syringes confirms the validity of the drug consumption taking place. But in its other aspects, one especially, we can see the sticky interfering fingers of the filmmaker, manipulating the events taking place and in turn losing sight of what makes documentary as an art form in and of itself interesting. The main event I'm referring to here is the death of Raven, which, as I've already said, has been proven to be fiction. The fact that this event is fake calls into question the events of the entire film and leaves us with 3 options when interpreting it. If this is all real, which we know it's not, but if it was, it would be a deeply depressing window into the world of drug addiction. An unflinchingly brutal and close-up film that highlights the reality of what it's like to be helplessly addicted to drugs. If it's all fake, it's an incredibly impressive ensemble piece with a cast of amateur actors somehow pulling off what could be called the greatest bit of acting I've ever seen. Again, we know it's not, but it would be pretty fucking amazing if it was. This seems to be a film that speaks louder as a comment on the filmmaker himself. The fact that the edgiest edgelord of all edgelords, Lucifer Valentine, didn't find crippling addiction hardcore enough is so annoying, but very on brand. If we view the filmmaker in film as a character himself and separate the real-life Lucifer Valentine, things get a little bit more fun. What if the filmmaker sees himself as a higher being, his namesake, and sees the filmmaker in film as a character trying to make an honest documentary? Then it is Lucifer's influence that infects the filmmaker and causes the film to nosedive into, let's all say it together, the usual Lucy V aesthetic. If Lucifer indeed couldn't help but get involved and manipulate the situation, the question is to what degree, and what sort of coercion took place during filming? Was there more money offered to bend the truth? A promise of more drugs? To be a fly on the wall and simply document the misery taking place is one thing, but when you start to change events and amplify the horror of drug addicts' lives simply for the purposes of making your film better, you kind of cross a line. And if so, the morality of the whole thing falls into doubt. Speaking of morality, recently there have been many reports of Lucifer Valentine being a real piece of shit. I'm not going to go into specifics here as it isn't really what I do on this channel, but if you want to know more, I'd recommend you give his name a search on here or Reddit. There's also a pretty damning Twitter thread out there that goes into detail regarding alleged wrongdoing on the filmmaker's part. It's all very shit and disappointing, and if true, I feel awful for all those affected. In the end, Black Metal Veins is a hard one. I wish it was just one thing, real or fiction. That way it would be so much easier to call it good or bad. It's complex in that regard, but the messaging comes through clear as day. This lifestyle was a real fucking bad way to go and not at all recommended. I love the editing, as with all of Lucifer Valentine's work, and out of everything he's made, this is undoubtedly his best. It's not my favourite, that's still Slaughtered Vomit Dolls, but it slots nicely into second place ahead of A Perfect Child of Satan. These three are actually good, with the rest of his filmography being some of the most infuriatingly films I've ever seen. If you're looking for a film that will turn you off heroin for good, even if some aspects are fictionalized, I highly recommend Black Metal Veins. So that was my review of Black Metal Veins. What do you lot think? We made it through together. I'm so proud of us. What do you reckon with the whole what's real and what's not debate? Let me know in the comments. I mean, I don't know what the legality of it is, being able to make a film and show a dead body in it. Like, even that just on its own sounds like it wouldn't be allowed. There's only one left for me in the filmography of Lucifer Valentine. It's ugly, depressing, 3 hours long, not available anywhere online, and, well, Autumn Misery returns. Raven, Sister S, she was, what one was she in? I think she's the one from Black Mass of the Nazi Sex Wizard. I don't know. Anyway, I'll be keeping that one in the back pocket for just the right time. If you're watching this on YouTube, I assume that you just had to sit through a whole shitload of Nicolas Cage faces, and if you wanted those removed, not that I understand why, you can go to patreon.com/Jonjo Lyons. There I've got all of my videos that are now currently releasing, being put out there first, early, and uncut. So for as little as $1 a month, you can go there and get access to all that good stuff. There I can say shit, balls, shit, fuck, bollocks, balls, fuck. I could say all of that is what I'm saying. So, come on over. Special shout out to Patron Absence of God for just having a really good name. And it fits here, obviously. I need a cup of tea and a cuddle, I think. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. We're nearly at 10k and I just can't fucking wait. So, do that. Give the video a like as well. But in the meantime, thank you all for watching. My name's Jonjo Lyons, and don't do drugs. Or do drugs. I don't care. Fuck you.